All right, everybody, welcome back to the Realm of History. Great night for a review. We got the first quiz tomorrow, so special edition right here, getting us ready for that first quiz paper tomorrow. Let's talk about a couple of key particulars here. First off, what we're going to be doing tonight on the live agenda. Number one, I'll have some key advice for you. Number two, we'll go through quite a few of the key terms, the figures, and the places that were assigned on your review sheet. Number three, we'll give you some tips to get ready for the AP portion of the quiz. Number four, we'll have question and answer time. And then number five, maybe a little bit of final advice, getting you ready for tomorrow. Before we get into it, if you could, give me a little shout out in the comments. Let me know that you're here. It's a good way for me to gauge who's watching the lives and how they do on the quiz. Not mandatory to be here, but sometimes we take a look at the folks who join us on the live reviews, scoring a little bit better than the ones that do not. So if you feel so inclined, go ahead. Let me know that you're here. Thank you for being here. And let's go ahead into the key advice tonight. First off, I would say make sure that you're studying your outline notes. That's the key thing in getting ready for these quiz papers. You're going to find that the more you study the notes, the more you know the notes, the better off you're going to be on the quiz paper. I would say read through your notes several times through. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you do that tonight, tomorrow morning. If you have me in the later hours, do that during seminar, do that during lunch. It's a great way to make sure that you're really ready for tomorrow's quiz. Of course, as I've been saying in the last few days, use your review sheet to kind of quiz yourself and make sure you're utilizing that key tool as well. All right, the next thing I'd like to say in my key advice is something that I think is really more important than anything you're going to do tomorrow on the quiz. And that's my second piece of advice, to pray for the right things. So I don't encourage you to pray for success on this quiz at all, but rather what I would say is understand that there are really so many more important things out there to pray for right now. Pray for your health, pray for the health and safety of your family. Pray. Here's a good thing to pray for. Pray for, the good Lord's guidance. Use your talents to the fullest in any way, shape, and form. And then also say the prayer of gratitude. We are really so blessed, right? I know it's Labor Day. We're laboring on Labor Day. I understand that might not be optimal for everyone, but understand that we're so blessed to be here, to be getting ready for a quiz. We're nervous about taking a quiz that's going to count for 30 points, while there are so many other people out there who trying to find out how they're going to survive, how they're going to get their next meal, So we got to thank the good Lord for all of the great things that have been bestowed upon us, all the talents that we've been blessed with, and utilize them to the fullest tomorrow in any way that you can. But when you wake up, say thank you. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for giving me this day. When you get in your car and it starts and you get to school safely, thank you, Lord. If you can do that, it's going to bring you closer to God and bring you in a great position of faith. Number three, something that we started the year with on day one, and this is where it's most imperative right now. It's be here now, right? Tomorrow when you come in the realm, pop in history, pop everything else out, right? Tonight, when you're here on this live review, pop in history, pop everything else out of your mind, focus on the task at hand, and you're going to be successful. You will be a champion if you can do that. But I guarantee you, if you're thinking about other things tomorrow during the quiz, you're not going to be mentally focused. You're not going to be mentally ready. Number four piece of advice, make sure that you say thank you to your parents. We often forget about this. But really, they do so much for you, and you wouldn't be in the position that you are right now without them, your parent, your guardian, your grandparents, whoever it is that's kind of caring for you and showing you the right way. Make sure that you, even if you have to stop what you're doing right now, go and tell them thank you, tell them you love them. Do this before you go to bed, but express your gratitude to the people who are important to you in your life. No matter what you do on this quiz tomorrow, the people who are important for you are going to love you this just the same. So if you're nervous about this test or assessment, there's so many other things that you should be focused on instead of being nervous. Number five, very important advice. We talked about how challenges are good, right? You need to rise to the challenge tomorrow. I am going to try to challenge you. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm going to try to do my best to challenge you. Even though this will be the easiest quiz of the year, it's still going to be a challenge because it's your first one. You're not exactly sure the type of questions that I'm going to come at you with. So make sure that what you got to do is give your best possible effort Don't shy away. Don't skip school. Don't be a Skipper McGee. All right. Be there, be here now, be on time, and give your best possible effort. If you can do that, you'll be a champion in my eyes. But you do have to put in the work to make sure that there is no doubt in your mind that you are ready. Okay, let's get into the key terms. Right now, we're going to start with prehistoric/prehistory. This really refers to the time period in history before the invention of writing. Historians kind of say, well, before we had writing, did we really have true written history? No. So they're saying that's prehistoric. Next is a very important time called the Neolithic Age. This is also known as the New Stone Age. It's a time in which better and more polished stone tools were developed, and the time span on that, which you should know, roughly 8,000 to 1,000 BC. Now, prior to the Neolithic Age, okay, was the Paleolithic Age. So the Paleolithic Age, though it comes second on the review sheet because it wasn't as important to our study as the Neolithic Age, it was older. So the Paleolithic Age is the Old Stone Age. This is a time in which basic stone tools were being used. Next, we have this ideology of the opposable thumb, meaning the thumb can cross over the digits and touch the fingers. This is something that Australopithecine, which was characterized in the textbook by Lucy, discovered by Mary Leakey and Richard Leakey. But the opposable thumb is basically this development that allowed the thumb to cross over the palm and touch the digits, which allowed for better tool usage and picking up and fastening items. Next is the key term domestication. Now, you can domesticate plants, that's farming, or you can domesticate animals. What we're mostly talking about when we say domestication is the taming and control of animals for human use. Next is one of those key characteristics of civilization. It's the term specialization. Specialization is the development of skill or skills in a specific kind of work. Now, as we're going through this, ladies and gentlemen, if you come up with any questions, think about them. And of course, I'll come back to the comments later. We'll have a question and answer session, and I'll go through any questions that you might have tonight. Next is ziggurat. Ziggurat was another word for temple. It's the Sumerian word for temple. It's the largest and most important building in many of our early cities. Next is the term nomad. Nomads are people that move from place to place in search of food and water. The vast majority of our early humans were nomadic. Also, nomads were hunter-gatherers. They are nomads that hunted animals and gathered plants for food. We talked a lot about these type of peoples in our first few lessons and lectures. One of the most important terms to know, the Neolithic Revolution. This is the development of farming that occurred in many parts of the world, all occurring around 8,000 BC. That's a really key date. 8,000 BC is where we see farming, agriculture start to change societies around 8,000 BC. It meant that people could settle in one place, and since they're not moving from place to place, they're building permanent dwellings, permanent structures, right? They're starting to advance civilization, advanced technology, specialization, complex institutions. Those are things that led to the development of cities and states and countries and kingdoms and monarchies. Next is one of the earliest successful forms of farming. It's called slash and burn farming. Slash and burn farming is basically the cutting down of trees and wild grasses and then burning them to clear an area for crop fields. What early humans discovered is as they did this slashing and burning, that even though they burned some of the plants, it led to some of the nutrients kind of fertilizing the soil beneath. One of our first metal workings was a mixture called bronze. It's basically when you melt down copper and tin, when those elements mix and harden, they create a much stronger substance called bronze. And this was developed first by the Sumerians of Mesopotamia. With that new metallurgy, that new metal coming around, we had the leading into the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age was the time period between 3000 and 1000 BC, in which bronze tools and weapons replaced stone tools and weapons. Going all the way back to section 1, you have the term hominids. Hominids are human-like creatures that walk upright. Some examples of hominids. Now, Here's a list that you're going to need to know. I'm not going to talk too much about these, but I would refer you to the chart on page 8 and 9. Go there, study up what's mentioned there about them. That's really all you're going to need to know, but it's Australopithecine, Homo habilis, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon. Those are the ones you're going to need to focus in on from that chart. As we advanced forward into the Sumerian world, we had the world's first writing system called cuneiform. It was developed around 3000 BC by the Sumerians. Next was the term barter. We didn't have money. We didn't have coinage. So in order to exchange goods, what merchants would do is they would barter. This is the exchange of goods and services without money. We did an example in class where we had maybe a blacksmith and maybe a farmer, and they would trade chicken eggs, let's say, for a hammer, so on and so forth, something along those lines. Barter is a form of trade. Trade is the exchange of goods. The difference between barter and trade, though, is that trade, you can pay a currency system for items, whereas barter, there's no currency involved. Next is a key term that we saw in the review game, and we saw in our notes a few times, artifact. Artifacts are human-made objects such as tools and jewelry. So the pencil here, this is an example of an artifact, right? That's a human-made object. Jewelry, also an example. A leaf, though, would not be an example of an artifact. That's a natural object, not human-made. Artisans, these are people that make things by hand. Blacksmiths, right? Textile workers, those are people who make clothing. That's an example of an artisan. Pottery. Institutions, long-lasting patterns of organization within a community. We said that in order to get some of the questions right in the quiz, you're going to need to be able to provide examples, right? An example of an institution was our school, a hospital, a prison, right? Rules and laws, government systems. Those are all very, very important to your understanding of civilization. Next is the term irrigation. This is one of our earliest forms of advanced technology, also developed most likely first by the Sumerians. The Sumerians have a lot of major inventions, okay? It's basically diverting water from a natural body, such as a river, to a crop field to water the plants. Very simple, but very, very effective in helping with agriculture. Finally, one of the most important ways to record history is through writing. And the people who did the writing, they were known as scribes. Scribes are professional record keepers that governments use to record rules and laws, storage of grain, and taxes owed. We had a series of key terms that we went over. Focus on these ones: BC, AD, BCE, and CE. I'll review them with you real quick. BC stands for before the birth of Christ. So it's used to date any event that occurred before Christ's birth. AD is the more tricky one. It stands for Anno Domini, which is Latin for the year of our Lord. And it's used to date events after the birth of Christ. BCE and CE are the same as BC and AD, just without the religious connotation. So BCE stands for before Common Era, and CE stands for Common Era. Once again, they're the same as before Christ's birth and after Christ's birth, but without the religious connection or connotation. Once again, I will be answering questions here shortly, but first, I want to give you some tips on how to prepare for the AP portion of the quiz tomorrow. Remember, there's two portions of the quiz. One is the content part. That's going to be for 20 points. And the second is going to be the AP part. The more challenging part, ballers, ballerinas, is going to be the AP portion. I'm really going to try to challenge you there with some questions that are a little bit more out of the box, a little bit more AP style. Got to make you think a little bit. So let me give you some tips. Number one, there's going to be 5 real MCQ questions, same type that you're going to see on the AP exam. Then there will be 2 extended response questions. We kind of talked about on the board the other day what the high possibilities are for those. I'm not going to go over that with you, but on the MCQs, there are a couple of things that I think you might want to focus in on. Number one, there was this key leader from Mesopotamia, which we introduced in Sumer and the city of Ur. He was a king of Babylon, and his name was Hammurabi. One of the key characteristics of civilization was complex institutions. And an example of a complex institution is the form of rules and laws. This King Hammurabi invented the world's first written law code. It was called Hammurabi's Code. Oftentimes, it's referred to as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Very, very equal in punishment. Basically saying, well, if you knock somebody's tooth out, well, then they can knock yours out. So it was the world's first law code. It was very harsh, but it's a great example of how civilization advanced into record keeping and complex institutions. So having a little bit of understanding there will help you on two of the questions. The other key element that I think maybe you want to focus on is the impact of rivers. We talked about irrigation, right? Most of our early settlements, including Sumer, Egypt, China, and the first civilization in India, were all predicated on rivers and river valleys. So when we talk about the Nile River and its importance to spreading agriculture, that's something that will help you also on the MCQ questions tomorrow. Remember, though, each of the MCQs come with an excerpt, which will kind of give you a little bit of an introduction as to how to answer the key questions. Okay, at this time, I'm going to move into our final segment today. Most times on our first one, it takes quite a bit of time to get through this. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to go to the comments, and I see already some questions, which is great. Thank you, everyone, for checking in. Really very happy to see all of you. Okay. And I'm going to be able to see your comments now. And if you have a question, please write it into the chat. And of course, I will pull it up on the screen and then answer it for you. Okay. I saw some already. I'm just going to give me a second. All right. Thank you, friends, for letting me know that your friends are in here. Here we go. Our first question is from Leah. For Neolithic age, do we need to know the years? Yes, I'm going to say that for the Neolithic age, you want to know that it happened between 8,000 and 3,000 BC. Any question that asks you to put it in that time frame will be very important. Maybe the question doesn't say Neolithic, but it gives you a time span and you'll know, okay, this is something that happened during the Neolithic age. Good first question. Here we go. Next question is, will we need to know exact years or just general time periods or in a timeline? When you're talking about bookend dates like 8,000 to 3,000, you're talking about rough estimates anyway. So knowing exactly the time period, I don't think that's going to make or break you. But knowing in general the chronological order is what we are definitely looking for in my class. And the same goes for the AP examination. So I would say more general time periods and timelining rather than exact years or dates. Excellent questions thus far. Keep rolling in the questions. Okay, so we have going over the Fertile Crescent. All right, in the maps in the book, okay, the Fertile Crescent is the region in Mesopotamia that had very fertile soil, and it's where farming actually began in the Middle East. So the Fertile Crescent is like a curved shaped region. It's kind of small. It's about the size of Massachusetts, the United States. But it is a region between the two rivers in Iraq, the Tigris and the Euphrates. And so it had good irrigation, had rivers that flooded, which gave it good soil. And so that's kind of where farming began in Mesopotamia. All right, moving on down the list. It takes me a second. Will the AP portion have anything to do with the notes? This week it will. So if I'm looking at the questions right now, MCQ question number 1, straight from the notes. MCQ questions number 4 and 5, directly from information covered in chapter 1. As we go later on in the year, the questions will draw from information that you read in AMSCO. But since the AMSCO information that we had for this week was more like informative, not really historical material, I'm drawing my questions from material related to chapter 1 and beyond. Yeah, so I went over the Fertile Crescent, right? That's that very fertile moon-shaped region in Mesopotamia. Sumer is like the world's first civilization in that area, and Ur was a major city that the book talked about being within Sumer. And so we had that like that little insert about Ur where we said how people lived in box-like windowless homes and how they had a bazaar where people would come and trade. That's going to be really important to focus in on that section of notes and the reading to get you ready for certain questions on the quiz tomorrow. All right, so extended response. What I'm looking for there, it will kind of give you a framework in the question. It might say list and describe or describe and explain in detail. What I generally would say is that when you have an extended response question, they're going to be more like a paragraph, maybe more. You're not going to be able to get away with 1 or 2 sentences to answer the extended response. The question will ask you most often for more than just that. All right, so it says prehistoric is before the Paleolithic. And are they different because they developed writing? All right, first of all, the Paleolithic age is the Old Stone Age. So, yes, that would still qualify as prehistoric times. Now, the Neolithic age kind of ends with the development of writing. So, there was really no record keeping or writing until the end of the Neolithic age at around 3000 BC. So, when you're talking Stone Age, all right, both Paleolithic and Neolithic, those are both kind of considered prehistoric. Yes. So I see some repeat questions. Probably people put them in the chat. That's fine. Ur is the city in the example of the first civilization of Sumer. So Sumer is a region. It's the first civilization talked about in the text. It's within Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq, where we had our first farming, some of our first inventions like the wheel, the sail, the plow. Talked about it in the notes in section 3, and the book goes over it in section 3 as well. All right, we're moving on down. No problem. If you have the same question, it's not a problem at all. Okay, Grace says, what are the disadvantages of being settled? All right, so we know the advantages, right? We can have farming. We can then develop complex civilization, record keeping, specialization, advanced technology. We're talking about here, what are the disadvantages of being settled? Well, here are some. One, makes you a target, right? Nomadic peoples who are still wandering about around you, they're going to say, aha, they have nice buildings, they have inventions, they have a lot of food right there. We're going to make a raid on the city of Ur. So you become a target. The next thing is that people start to live in close proximity, right? Which could lead to disease. Population is going to grow, which could lead to disputes, conflicts over land, conflict over property. That's why you need to have rules and laws, which sometimes came a little bit later, right? But another major advantage is that when you're settled, natural disasters can have a bigger impact. Because, hey, here's where you live, right? A natural disaster like a flood or a fire or something along those lines could destroy everything that you have. You have less of an opportunity for that if you're constantly on the move because you're living in more like mobile homes, not mobile homes like you would think today, but homes that can be moved easier, like tents, caves, so on and so forth. Yeah, of course. A sedentary lifestyle means settled. So there's sedentary and there's non-sedentary. Non-sedentary is on the move, like nomadic. So sedentary lifestyle means settled village life, city life, civilization. Okay, so the locations of where everything happens on your review sheet, I put key places, right? Sumer, the city of Ur, and Fertile Crescent. Those are two big ones on your sheet. The other place I think you need to focus in on is Africa, because section one was all about how life began in Africa and how people migrated out of Africa to other parts of the world. And so, yes, I mean, locations, geographic understandings, any maps that are on the list of things to study, like map page 3, map page 10, map page 17, those will all be important things to focus in on. So I already went over sedentary lifestyle. That's settled, right? That's where people are settled in one place. Will there be questions based on the format of the AP portion as talked about in the EBSCO? 100%. This is a high possibility. Yeah, you definitely needed to read that section, and I gave you notes on it, so should be a good, very plausible and highly likely possibility. Yes, indeed. Anything that was in that reading is fair game. Yeah. Once again, anything that was in that reading is fair game for the test. Well, Evie, some of those hominids like Neanderthal, more European, right? So be careful. Make sure that you know kind of where they settled and where some of their key areas were. But a general idea of like the general continent in which they lived would be very important. Yes. The three C's are the historical reasoning processes: causation, comparison, continuity and change over time. Did any other things happen in the Fertile Crescent besides when farming started, or is that it? And mostly everything else happened in Sumer. So, okay, so the Fertile Crescent is part of Sumer. It's part of Mesopotamia, right? It's a big region. So yes, many things would be counting there. First civilization, irrigation, the invention of the wheel, the sail, the plow, uh, all of those things are going to be part of what happened in the Fertile Crescent and Sumer and Ur. They're all kind of interconnected there. We will need to use the three C's on the quiz. Always, always. Yeah. The historical reasoning processes when you're on the AP portion and when you're on the content portion. Yes, you got to be able to compare things. You got to be able to understand cause and effect. You got to take a look at how things stayed the same over time or did they change? What caused those changes? What changes did the Neolithic Revolution lead to, right? So, yes, indeed, the three C's, not only knowing them, but also having a good understanding of how those things have an impact will be important. Oh, my donkeys. Well, really would rather you refer to your notes on this one. This is kind of more of a big picture question. This would take me, another 20 minutes to talk about that. I'll tell you the five characteristics of Civ, but it's up to you to really be able to explain them. First of all, you have advanced cities. Remember that an advanced city is one that's a center of trade, not just a big city, but it has to be a center of trade for a larger region, right? Then you have specialized workers. Specialization is where people focus on a certain skill or a certain job. What it means is that not everybody's a farmer, right? People are kind of doing specific skills, which advances technology. People get really good at being a blacksmith or a farmer or a textile worker or a merchant. So that's why specialization is important. Then you have complex institutions, things like rules and laws. We learned about how important that was, and we talked about how as people move closer, you got to be able to settle disputes. So rules and laws to keep order, very important. Then you have record keeping, of course, writing, keeping track of important details. And finally, advanced technology. Examples would be things like irrigation or using animals like the horse to plow fields or something along those lines. All right, moving into what's our final question on the list right now. Well, I think with Mary Leakey, the most important thing is understanding the work with hominids, right? Footprints found here and there. What did that lead to? What did we discover from um, where those footprints led? Any remains that were studied, right? Those are things that kind of Mary Leakey's and Richard Leakey's work led us into. All right, I'm still here, and I see that there are quite a few of you remaining. I would love to have more questions. I will stay on for a few more minutes, but please fire away with questions that I can answer to help you. And if there's anything else that I can help you with tonight, um, please do ask. It's totally open to questions at this time. Here's one. So Hammurabi's code, it's the world's first code of laws, and the way that it relates is kind of due to complex institutions. It's a great example of an early form of a complex institution because it's the world's first law code. And the reason that it's important to us is because we are learning about how people first settled, right? And early civilizations like Sumer, Egypt, Babylon, they had to keep order. And so Hammurabi's code is just a first written law code that helped keep people in order as they started to settle and live in close proximity to each other. Kenzie, I would say there's going to be references to places on those maps. I'm not going to say that like very intricate detail on the map is going to be assessed, or like there won't be a map on the quiz. But knowing geographically where Sumer is, where the Fertile Crescent is, which is on your review sheet listed um, as those maps, those maps show you exactly those places that I've listed. That would be important information to know from those maps. That would be helpful. Well, this is in the reading. So those footprints found led us to further investigate what made those footprints, right? So we follow the footprints and it leads us to, okay, remains, bones, archaeological studies, right? Which then tell us a little bit more about how early humans lived. What did they do? What was their bone structure? Um, were they walking upright? Did they cover much ground? Those are some of the things that you're looking at with Mary Leakey's discoveries. Yes, you need to be able to explain those three C's as it was explained in the reading of AMSCO. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so this is something that's mentioned in the chart, right? So I said focus on that chart, and anything that's in that chart would be, of course, fair game. Yeah, so on page 22, it really does talk about merchants, priests, right? Things of that nature. So the order that it is in the book kind of gives you the true order of what you're going to need to know, right? So that's really important. Master Kale is a seasoned veteran. I think Kale graduated a few years ago, but a really strong student back in his day. So we've got some veterans joining the live reviews, which is kind of cool. The chart on the hominids is located on page 8 and 9. It's kind of like a timeline, page 8 and 9. Any other questions? I'm going to stay on for a few more moments. I really appreciate all of you being here. I hope that this has been helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think. And hey, I'm looking forward to a really strong quiz tomorrow. Hopefully, it's a challenge for you. Remember that challenges are good. and we need to take challenges. If we're not challenging ourselves, we're not getting any better. Remember to pray for the right things, right? And don't forget to say thank you to your parents. I think that's really important. If you need to stop what you're doing right now, go do that. That's more important than anything else. Express your gratitude and say the prayer of gratitude as well for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon you. Any other questions? So I went over this. I told you to write this down. I said on the content part, there's 38 questions total. And on the AP part, there are 5 MCQs and 2 extended responses. So you're up about, what's that, about 45 questions tomorrow? It's a real deal. It's the real deal. It's not a joke, right? No, it's real. I call it a quiz, but it's more like a test, right? More like an examination. So you got to make sure that you're ready to rock and roll for sure. Other questions? Realm family, I talk about the classroom being the realm, and my YouTube page is called The Realm of History. But it's like we're like a family. We're working together, so we're like a realm family, and we want to make sure that you're all ready to do well on the quiz tomorrow. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to stay on for about 1 more minute. All right, so you hit the big one, sedentary living, right? But with sedentary living, it led to a great deal of changes, such as advanced technology, record keeping, all the 5 characteristics, trade, right? Inventions. Those are all the big things that were brought about by the Neolithic Revolution. Nope. Remember, you should have already read the textbook, right? It's already been assigned those sections. But reading your notes, I think that's the big thing to do. Now, I put important pages in the text on your review sheet. That's not going to work. Lexi, give me a second, everybody. Let me share my screen with you, okay? Just 1 second. So I'm going to go to the review sheet. Hopefully all of you can see this, but if you look here, it says important pages in the text. Those pages, I would say, okay, go back and review those pages for sure. Yeah, I would definitely say you should do that. But other than that, I wouldn't suggest reading everything. No. Okay. In the book again. Let's see. Izzy says, will we get answers to the MCQ sample to check our work? No, that sample is just to show you what the question looks like. It's not really something that's content related to what we're doing. So I'm not going to give you the answers to that. That was just to show you like what one looks like. Okay, we have time for a few more questions if there are any out there. Excuse the silence. I'm just waiting for questions to show up. We've been on for 40 minutes, so right about what I said, 45 minutes, right? Right on average there. All right. I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So, hey, if you have any further questions, you can always email me or come see me in the morning or come see me at seminar. So I'm available to you. I hope that this session was very helpful to you. I want to say thank you. And I really appreciate you being here. And I hope that you do very well on tomorrow's quiz. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You're going to have many more opportunities to get stronger, to get better. But for now, have a wonderful night. Remember, tomorrow, be here now. Don't be a Skipper McGee. And we will check in with you at tomorrow's class session. Peace.